So I'm here at the Lone Star Regional, and I just ran into Kyle, who's written a book about Gruen Curvex watches, or I'm sorry, Curvex.
The Curvex, Gruen Curvex watches, yeah.
Gruen Curvex watches, and I'm going to have him share a little bit about this amazing watch. So take it away, Kyle. Tell us about this
Absolutely.
watch.
So this is the book it is. It covers the Gruen Curvex, which is made from 1935 until 1956. The ladies' watches are actually made until 1958. The nice thing about the interesting thing about these is that during those times, curved watches were a fashion statement. To have a watch that was actually curved to the side, to the shape of the wrist, was very desirable. And a lot of watchmakers were missing the mark on the idea. They were just making curved cases. Gruen did something different. They actually took the movement and physically curved the movement to fit the case, which made the ability for the watch to be longer and more curved, depending on which Curvex you had. And so they passed a patent in, the Fry Watch Company developed the Curvex movement. It was called the Curvilinear. And they had that watch as a better watch for women because women's movements were so small that they had to make the all the parts in different planes, making it larger to keep better time. So the ladies' watches inspired the idea of making the actual Curvex itself. In 1932, Gruen obtained the patent from the Fry Watch Company, and instead of making only ladies' watches with this Curvex movement, they started making men's watches with it. And the first one appeared in October of 1935. And Gruen wasn't really sure if it was going to take off. They didn't really know, well, are people going to like this? Are they going to buy it? They flew off the shelf. And at that point, Gruen was in the red, bad in the red. What was it? The depression was going on at that time, and it wasn't looking good for them. And the Curvex actually saved the entire company.
Oh, wow.
And put them in the black very quickly, and to the point where they made a second generation of the Curvex in 1937. So the first release was in 35, and they said it was so good, they went ahead and started making the ones for 1937. And it went on from there. But the thing that's different about these watches is that the Curvex, the actual watch, is curved and the movement is curved. And they held the patent on that, where no one else could actually create that watch. They could have a curved case. They could not have a curved movement. And that's what cornered them on that market. They came up with some incredible designs. And there were four varieties of that watch in the men's and 3 in the ladies. And we're talking about a 311 movement that was made starting in 1935, the 330 movement that was made in 1937, and then the 440 movement, which was 1940, and then in 1948, after the war, they came out with the 370 movement.
Wow. And you have some really fine examples to show us today,
I have some very interesting ones. Yeah, because keep in mind that Gruen made the movements, and their design teams actually carved out some of the cases. The cases, like pocket watches, were all made by different companies.
Oh.
So everything was brought together in Cincinnati, cased and timed there, and then sold. And that was only for the Curvex line. Now that changed when they started making the Gruen 21, which was a Cincinnati-based watch completely, all U.S. made. But these are Swiss movements, designed in Switzerland, and actually they were made in the factory was made near the Rolex factory as well.
Oh.
There was a connection in between Gruen and Rolex. If you've ever seen a Rolex Prince, and we'll actually show you one of those right here. But the Gruen had their own version of that watch.
Oh, wow.
So But
Why don't
really,
we go ahead? Sorry,
oh,
sorry.
just really cool watches. If you ever have a chance, look for them. They're called Gruen Curvex, and there are copies of them, but don't be fooled. It has to have either the 311, 330, 440, or 370 movement, or it's not a Curvex.
Tell us a little bit about your book. Where, if somebody wants to buy your book on Gruen Curvex, can they buy that
Well,
online?
yeah, I was going to build my website and everything else, and sold out. I've got 3 copies left, and those are going away. And I've got 18 made for nationals, and then I'm going to have to do a second edition. And the reason I can show you why we have to do a second edition, because I found a watch that no one knows about, and
Oh,
it's actually in this case, and a very rare one. But this book, what it does is it has history on the watches. It has, let's see, it's history, it's all the different movements, the variations in the movements. Then you have your case makers, all the different case makers. And then if you look into it, you also have every identifying Curvex there is. And it's all color coded so you can know what era, what year.
oh wow.
And so, yeah,
Some very good photography of these watches.
Thank you.
This is
I
very
did all
nice,
these.
but wow.
Yeah, and I learned very quickly how to and how not to do photography.
Yeah.
And all the pictures except for like 8 are mine.
Well, this is a really nice book.
Thank
put
you.
Together.
And then I've got in the very back I've got it's, if I get over to it, it's curiosities, oddities, and rarities, and these are the weird
Okay.
stuff that you can find in Curvexes, in the Curvex line.
About
and-
how long did this project take you to write? I mean,
11 years of my life.
11 years.
11 years. And I started out, I didn't know what I was getting into. I got out of watches and hadn't done anything with them. And then a guy at work brought me a Curvex I'd never seen before. And I said, let me call a friend of mine. So, I'd been out of it for years, and I called him, and he had passed away. And then I called another friend, and he had passed away. And I started realizing that all this information that anyone knew about these watches was gone. And so I said, I've got to start writing this stuff down, what I know. And it turns out about 80% of what I thought was real was not.
Oh no.
So I started researching. I found a ton of different things, and basically weeded out everything to get this book made. And 11 years, but it's completely worth it.
Absolutely.
And all I'm going to do is just add to it gradually
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. So if you do want to get a copy of this book, I recommend that you come to the Nationals and see Kyle there, and he's going to be getting more copies printed. So Gruen Curvex watches, please keep that in mind. If you are a collector, this is a great book to add to your collection. Now, Kyle, I was wondering, could you show us some of these pieces, especially that rare one you were talking
Yeah,
about?
well, I absolutely. We'll start digging into some of these. Okay, so this is the Gruen Curvex Technique Quadron. This has a 15 joule movement. That is the 18. This is the Rolex Prince has an 18 joule movement. This has the 15 joule movement variant of that. So they are the same movement except for a couple more joules, or 3 precise. And this case is very interesting because it is green and white gold striped, not yellow. So the Curvex print, the Rolex Princes actually came with a yellow and white gold striped case. This one is green and white gold. It's the only one known to exist. Yeah, and they spared no expense with this watch because all of it was assembled in Switzerland and shipped over. So normally it was just, they would ship over parts and they would get hit with a minor tariff. This was a completed watch, sold over, well, was made for someone and shipped, so they had to pay the full tariff on that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so pretty incredible watch.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at a couple more. This is the Gruen Curvex 311-202, also known as the Curvex Premier. Now, the gold fill version of this was called the original Gruen Curvex, and then they changed the name to the Curvex Pier. And you can tell because of these lines right here. The watch was designed by a guy by the name of Count Alexis de Sakanovsky, and Gruen hired him for this deco shape. And if you look at the dial, this is what's unusual about this watch. Not only that it's 14 karat gold, but the the numbers on this watch are applied and not embossed.
Oh, wow.
This is the only example that has that.
This is a beautiful watch.
Thank you. And it is also, as you can see, curved.
Yes. Wow.
So these are all Gruen Curvex driver's watches. So they're also known as wrist side watches. Why were they known as wrist side? Because of this.
Oh, wow.
They can only fit on the side of the wrist. And this one is called the Viceroy. It was made in 1938, and Gruen went kind of crazy when they did this. They thought, well, if people like really curved watches, let's give them this. It wasn't a good idea. It did not sell, and these kind of went into oblivion. So these lasted maybe 3 years at tops, but they found that when people wore them, they'd bang them into doors, bang them into drawers. It just didn't work out that well. Also, if you were wearing cuff sleeves, it didn't fit in the cuff. So it was real good for bus drivers because they couldn't take their hands off the wheel, so they could look at their wrist and see what time it is without ever letting go of the steering wheel. These others were the answers in 1949 to that same question. Can we build a watch that can curve to the side of the wrist?
Oh,
well, yeah,
wow.
they could. And because that was such a flop, they designed it where it could fit on top of the wrist as well. So you could do that or do that,
Nice.
and it could fit to the side.
That is super cool.
Yeah, they're very cool. They're very interesting watches.
I've not seen one like that.
And they also were complete flops. That's why you didn't see them, because they didn't sell very well,
Wow.
and again went into obscurity, unfortunately. These are the Curvex Majesty. This was the longest Curvex ever made. They were 52 millimeter length. They had the 330 movement, and they started being made in 1937. They ended the line in about 1941, about the start of the war, for the United States, that is.
Wow.
This is what's so nice.
Oh, wow.
It has a very deep curve, and because of the curvature of the movement, it made this watch able to produce with a very accurate movement.
Wow.
And these are 5 of them, and they're all a little bit different, from your salmon dial to your metropolitan dials to your Arabic dial.
Wow.
Oh, and this has got this has a Butler dial on it, and a few different variants. But these are the Curvex Majesties, the longest Curvex ever made.
Now, I got a question. If somebody's looking at these watches and they want to buy one, where do you think would be the best place to find one of these watches?
I'm going to sell off part of my collection because I'm finished with my book. So I'm going to start selling them slowly. The thing is, you have to watch out for is how the condition of the case versus condition of the dial versus anything else. You can find them on eBay, of course. You can find them at different watch sites. You just need to educate yourself on what you're looking at when you go to buy them. And that's another reason why my book is
Absolutely.
what it is, because you can read that, and by the end of it, you'll know what to look for.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay, so tell us about this one right here.
This is a variant that we just discovered about 2 weeks ago. We didn't know it existed. And as you can tell, this is what's called a Curvex Executive. The case style number is 615. The movement is a 370. But what makes it different is right here on the side. These are all 14 karat gold watches. but this small ridge right here should not be there.
Oh, wow.
On every one that I've ever seen, that is not there.
Huh.
This one is a variant that no one knew about. It's a late model because it has the 5 diamonds on the dial, and everything on the case is correct. We thought it was a thing called a Frankenstein, where we're not sure. You know, it was a marriage of 2 cases.
Yeah.
But then we identified that the case serial number is the same number etched in the top of the case. It is all correct.
Wow.
Amazing. And that was Florida. Well, and then, yeah, Brian, who you'll be interviewing tomorrow, we were out at dinner and I was showing him, kind of lamenting, saying, well, I wish I hadn't bought this watch. And then he looked at it and said, I've had those before, but mine doesn't have the ridges on the side. And I didn't notice it. And I started looking and said, crud. I said, I cannot believe that I missed that. And so we started looking at it, and I started conferring with some other, Kerry Hurt and a couple of others about it, and we all confirmed that this is a variant that no one had ever seen before.
Oh my gosh.
So
that is super cool.
Pretty unique.
Yeah.
All the way around. And that is a 14 karat gold Curvex Executive.
Man. Kyle, I want to thank you for taking time to meet with me and educate me about Gruen Watch Company. These models are absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
I'm really hoping that people can get out here and actually see these watches and understand. A lot of people don't understand vintage watches. When you start really getting into them, you can understand how cool they actually are, and they're very collectible. It's something that people can take up very inexpensively and make a nice collection out of them.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you for your time.